My name is Hannah, and for a long time I believed that my destiny was something decided by men sitting at a table, papers in their hands and silence in their eyes. I grew up learning to count coins before I ever learned how to dream. Our house was small, simple, always on the edge of collapse. My father's debt was not just a number, it was a ghost that followed us every day. It sat with us at the table, occupied the space where food should have been, whispered worries into the silence of the early morning hours. I felt it in the heaviness of my father's shoulders, in the bills counted one time too many, in the way my mother turned off the lights earlier to save money. The debt was everywhere, in the fear of a knock at the door, in postponed dreams, in the constant certainty that something would be taken from us. We didn't know when or how, only that the price would come. When Richard Callahan came to collect what was owed, I knew our story had reached its end. He was the largest landowner in the region, owner of fields that seemed to stretch on forever, a respected, feared man used to settling everything with dry, final agreements. That night I heard my parents speaking in low voices, and I understood everything without my name ever being spoken. I would be the payment. In my mind there was no doubt. I would marry Richard Callahan, an older man, hard, distant. I spent days preparing myself for a life without affection, imagining a cold marriage in which I would simply exist.
As this story unfolds, grant us your favor, stay within our circle, and keep watch, and tell us, where do you think this path will lead?
On the day I left my home, my mother smoothed my hair with trembling hands, as if trying to protect me from the world I was about to face. My father could not look me in the eyes. I said I would be fine. I don't know if anyone believed me. The farm confirmed all my fears, enormous, silent, imposing. Richard received me with calculated politeness, spoke of the debt as if it were ordinary business, and then said something that made my heart stop for a moment. I would not marry him, I would marry his son so that he could receive the inheritance left by his uncle. That was when I saw Ethan Callahan for the first time. He stood a few steps behind his father, shoulders stiff, his expression far too serious for someone so young. There was no pride there. There was surprise, as if he were trapped between obedience to his father and something he could not yet name. In that instant I realized I was not the only one bound to a decision I had not chosen. Ethan was being pushed into that marriage as well. When I was taken into the house, I thought I would share a room, as I always had my whole life. Instead, they led me to a room of my own. A quiet room, with a neatly made bed and an open window letting in the late afternoon light. Sitting on the bed, I felt something strange. Not joy, not relief, but a shy, almost unsettling sense of being welcomed. For the first time since I had left my home, no one treated me like a payment. I still did not understand my place on that farm, but in that quiet room, for a brief moment, I felt that someone cared about making me feel whole. We were married a few days later. Everything happened too quickly, as if time itself were in a hurry to push us toward that fate. There was no celebration, no music, no laughter. Only a small group gathered, formal words spoken without emotion, and glances that avoided lingering too long. I wore a simple, borrowed dress and clenched my hands to keep from showing how out of place I felt. When I repeated the vows, my voice came out low, restrained, as if I were merely confirming an agreement already made by others. Ethan stood beside me, serious, tense, but never cold. At no point did he rush or pressure me. When our fingers touched for the first time, it was out of necessity, not romance, and yet that gesture carried more respect than I had expected. At the end, there was no kiss, only a heavy silence, and the clear awareness that our lives had been bound together there, not by love, but by a debt that was not ours. In the first days we lived together cautiously. We spoke little, walked in silence, shared the same house without truly sharing it. I prepared myself for an empty marriage, but Ethan began to break down my defenses with simple gestures. He never touched me without permission, always asked if I needed anything, always included me in decisions, even the smallest ones. That confused me. I expected obligation, not consideration, but living together has a quiet power. Little by little I began to see Ethan beyond that obligation. He always waited for me to sit before eating, asked if I was comfortable, left books on the table when he discovered I liked to read, walked with me across the farm, explaining every corner, as if he wanted to offer me that world instead of imprisoning me in it. The conversations came slowly. He spoke about the pressure of growing up in Richard Callahan's shadow, about the weight of carrying a surname as vast as those lands. I told him about my childhood marked by scarcity, by the constant fear of losing everything. In those exchanges, something began to grow. A safe space, a place where I was not a debt, and he was not merely the heir to an empire. The romance did not appear suddenly. It was built in small gestures, in the way Ethan held my hand when I was nervous, in the attentive look when I spoke, in the way he smiled when he heard me laugh, as if that sound were a rare victory. One night in low light, he confessed that he feared he would never be loved for who he truly was, and not for the name he carried. That vulnerability touched me more than any promise ever could. Our first kiss did not happen on impulse. It happened on a calm night, after a conversation too long to be ignored. It was gentle, respectful, full of intention. There was no hurry. From then on, we stopped being just husband and wife by contract. We became partners. We shared tasks, dreams, silences. We learned to trust each other. Love grew quietly. It grew in trust, companionship, daily care. We began to plan together, to share responsibilities, to laugh without guilt. The farm stopped being a prison and became a home. Ethan did not try to save me. He walked beside me, and I did not need to make myself smaller to fit into his life. With time, I realized that loving Ethan was not a single feeling, but a sequence of silent choices. I chose to trust when he spoke about the future carefully, as if afraid of frightening me. I chose to believe when he included me in plans for the farm, asking my opinion as if it truly mattered. There were nights when we sat on the porch, watching the fields fall asleep, saying almost nothing, and still I felt heard. Love became visible in those simple moments, when he rested his shoulder against mine, when he intertwined our fingers without haste, when he spoke my name as if it was something precious. I no longer thought about leaving. I no longer felt like I was just passing through. I was putting down roots beside him. Today, I know that the debt that brought us together lost its power over time, not because it was forgotten, but because it was overcome by something greater. Ethan stopped being the farmer's son in my eyes and became the man who chose to share his life with me, even when it would have been easier to keep his distance. And I stopped being the girl handed over as payment and became a woman who built her own place in the world. Our love was not born of chance, nor of grand promises. It was born of coexistence, respect, and the daily decision to stay. And that is why when I look to the future now, I no longer see fear. I see continuity. I see the two of us side by side, writing together a story that finally belongs to us. I see a life built in small gestures, in simple mornings, in repeated choices that say, I stay, even when it would be easier to leave. I don't know what tomorrow holds for us, but I know I no longer walk alone. And for someone who was once treated like a debt, that is more than love. It is freedom.
If this tale has pleased your heart, grant us your favor and stand beside us.
And if you wish to hear many more, join us and keep watch for what comes next.